A very good morning to everybody. I invite all the delegates to the fifth Lean Leaders Forum here at Oman. We'd be just setting the tone in terms of what this forum is going to deliver today. We have an action-packed agenda. First, why this forum? SSA has strongly believed in giving back to industry, giving back to the society. And the purpose of this forum is primarily to disseminate lean knowledge and share among the local community the best practices, the developments which are happening in the field of lean, with an aim to motivate organizations to help in the economic turnaround which is required in the current economic scenario. We will cover how lean is going to be used as a strategic driver. We will talk about also how lean can be a key enabler to improve the profitability of organizations. We have practitioners and leaders come and share their experiences in terms of how they have deployed lean across their organizations, talk about the challenges, talk about the best practices, what worked, what did not work, and help us gain from their knowledge. Last but not the least, we will have a panel discussions which will help answer any queries or questions which you may have in your minds and help address those.
So I thought I will talk about why lean rather than how part of it, because I know that the rest of the speakers are going to spend a lot of time in trying to share their experience and wisdom in terms of how lean has been deployed and how we can probably make good use of it as far as the organizational development is concerned. So I would like to bring the perspective, what is the difference between a change and transformation? That's the theme on which I would like to talk about. When I grew up, I was brought up in such a way that, for example, this illustration shows that they said the sequence in which our learning happens is what, how, and why. So I would like to explain what this really means is. For example, he said, I was told when I was a small kid that drink milk. But how to drink milk, they taught me a little later. But why to drink milk was never explained to me. Yeah. In the same way, the learning process generally starts with the what part of it. So many of the organizational transformation interventions have started with what is to be done. But it is also told that how it is to be done, but we were never explained why it is to be done. So invariably, when the why part is not very clear, then the how and what part of it is not really helping the organization. So many times, organizations have started with some continuous improvement in a small way from a bottom-up approach. And then later on, it took many years for it to reach the boardroom, attention of the top leaders, because most of the time, the how part is focused rather than the why part of it. One of the interesting information is, these developed countries where there is a huge amount of wealth is created, from the year 1965, you see 2010, the return on investment is continuously depleting. Yeah? It was 4.1% in 1965. A typical company in America, the average is 0.9 now. So this is another interesting question I would like to throw upon. But when the wealth creation is happening in the form of a huge amount of turnover and GDPs and so on, why the return on investment is depleting in a significant way? The reason why this is happening, there are two important metrics which are missing in the organizations. One is the efficiency, which is essentially the output by input. That means the output is coming down and the input is increasing. So organizations are not able to visualize that how this is creeping into the system over a period of time, thereby efficiency comes down. The other important metric which is missing is the effectiveness metrics. There are three factors are there. One is the technology, second is the methodology, third is the management. Now this research has shown that the contribution of technology is only 15% to the profitability of an organization. It's very strange and very striking for you, because generally we think that we are implementing an ERP system or we are bringing the state-of-art technology in manufacturing, and hence we must be able to make more money. But that has got only 15% capability to contribute to the organizational profitability. The methodology, 80% contribution comes from the methodology. Now, when you say methodology, what it really means is how the organization is designed, how the organization is functioning. It is purely a kind of an arrangement. Just to give an example, that in the West, the motor car manufacturing companies are functioning in a particular methodology, and whereas in Japan, the motor car manufacturing is happening with a different methodology. So, methodology is nothing but the way in which the organization is structured, the organization value streams are flowing, how the information is being exchanged, and so on. So, going forward, I would like to give you some perspective that 80% contribution is coming from methodology, which never draws the attention of the leadership team. So, lean is playing an important role in addressing this 80% of the methodology. Coming to the last item, which is a management. Many a times we feel by our superhuman management systems, we will be able to improve profitability. Unfortunately, the contribution is only 5%, because the majority of the time, the management time is spent on fighting fire. It is not spent on really on the major strategic issues of the organization. Another interesting aspect is, most of our future plans are created from the past. Meaning that we want to see what is the turnover we have done last year, and then we want to consider 10 or 15% growth, and then we want to decide the futuristic plan for the business. Most of the time, the so-called strategy is nothing but finding an incremental growth to the organization. But the rule of the game is changing now. Transformation is for creating the future from the future. Yeah? That is where the design thinking is coming on board. Meaning that the very challenge of running the business model needs to be addressed at this point in time. So that is the kind of transformation that we are looking at. So as Jack Welch said, his willingness to change is a strength. If it means plunging part of the company into a confusion for a while. But whenever we are trying to rock the boat, in fact, when I wrote my leadership book, I was interviewing quite a number of successful leaders. What I found is the only job leader has got is only to create the future. He has got nothing else to do, right? So at that point in time, creating a future cannot be done unless otherwise you are willing to rock the boat. So rocking the boat will always create some kind of uncertainty, right? If the leader is concerned about not rocking the boat, then he cannot be an effective leader. Now, unfortunately, lean came from a manufacturing company like a Toyota Production System. Many people are still thinking that lean is something more meant for mass producing kind of a repetitive product industry. No, lean is a philosophy. It is a religion. It's a way of thinking, the way of designing your methodology of your organization. Now, where does it cut across? It could be starting from the boardroom, organizational structure, people mindset, business processes, and so on. So that means nothing came in the past, maybe TQM or Six Sigma or ISO 9000, none of them have really encompassed into the whole DNA of the organization like what the lean does. So it's extremely important to understand that lean is not a tool. Lean is not a one-time intervention. Lean is a transformation vehicle. Now, just at the 40,000 feet perspective, I was just trying to understand what lean is all about at the philosophical level. I find the Plausil's law, Plausil postulated a law basically, right? What Plausil's law says is, your return on investment is a function of flow. Right? How are we looking at lean is very important. When the flow happens in your organization, your return on investment will go up. Let me build on this a little bit. And if you see, flow is the function of velocity of information and velocity of material flow. What is flowing within the organization essentially? The organization, only the information flows in certain department and the material is flowing in the shop floor. When you are improving the velocity of it, your return on investment will go up. As the quality guru Edward Deming said, improve the speed of response in your organization, eliminate defects, and then involve the people. Now, very clear specific directions are coming from these great thinkers that you have to focus on flow. Now, unfortunately, lean has never been seen as a vehicle through which flow can be improved. Makes sense? So, we projected it as a waste elimination. The way in which we are projecting a particular methodology, that's the way the result will be. But it's extremely important to go by the Plausil's law. But if you look at an organization and business model, you have got primarily converting a raw material into a finished goods if it is a manufacturing company. And if it is a service company, the customer requirement is translated from the form of a product, maybe an insurance company or somebody else, or a bank or any other company. The faster that the information is flowing across the organization, faster the material is going across the organization, obviously the throughput increases. Now, when the throughput increases, obviously your return on investment goes up. As simple as that. And there are two approaches I mentioned. One is the top-down approach, the other one is the bottom-up approach. You will find that the top-down approach has got the highest level of success. Meaning, that means the boardroom has to be very clear that why are we doing this transformation work and what this really means to the business performance and what strategic intent that it is fitting into the organizational future. When it is going to become the CEO's commitment, then obviously the success rates are very high.
I thought the last time I was at the Leaders Forum seemed like a very short time ago. And as NC said, we were just considering lean. And I think you'll see from the presentation, there's been a seismic shift in the way that we think about lean. We've had a very good journey in NAMA, which I hope I can do justice in the story that I'll tell in partnership with SSA. And I think over a very short period of time, which is quite unusual, we've seen a lot of successes. And I think it was an important driver at the very beginning when we started thinking about how we were going to institutionalize lean. We were able to use the levels, and I remember the discussion with SSA on this in the very beginning was, we want to see how many people we can attract to the concept. So we made the decision to start with awareness and then yellow belt. And it worked reasonably well. The plan overall is that we would partner with a strong strategic partner, which turned out to be SSA, and we would develop a roadmap where NAMA Group would become self-sustained in approximately 3 to 5 years. Very ambitious, but we had to set a target somewhere with a good bit of ambition to drive the urgency of the actual project. The idea, and this is a thing that we jointly came up with, is that we would establish and operate the initiative and the project, all the time building the capability internally to eventually transfer the control of the project completely back into the NAMA Group. Think about the sustenance of the project at the very beginning. It's much easier to modify your approach than it is to suddenly think, oh, we're at the end of the implementation phase, what are we going to do now? So think about it at the very beginning and in general start building capacity. In both of the ones in this region that I've been involved in, the keys to success were that leadership support and the internal swell in the culture where people became very familiar with the language of lean. They mightn't actually know what lean is, but they're very familiar with the language around lean and what's expected. This is the numbers that we've achieved to date. So we've trained 317 people. It's quite a lot when you consider that the 2018 batch started in November. So in literally just over a year, just 317 people have been trained. And around 100 projects have been initiated at some level. When we look for feedback, and basically our feedback from our customers, there's around an 85% level of engagement, and level of satisfaction across the group, which is good. When it comes to doing this on a day-to-day basis, constant engagement is key. SSA and NICD have been openly available to go to every group company and speak on any platform about lean. And some of them have been very formal events where everybody has been there and all the senior management have shown up. Some of them have been Naveen's team and our team will go and meet one person and smooth out whatever needs to be smoothed out or inform whatever needs to be informed. These have also been very successful. It's made the journey very smooth. One comment that I'll make is, SSA follow up with me every month and we have a meeting. After about 6 months, Naveen said to me, so what's the feedback? And I said, look, there's been nothing negative yet. I'm starting to worry. It's all very positive so far. And I actually said to him, I need to hear a negative comment at some point in time to make sure that I'm getting the true feedback. But the truth is, it is all positive. So far, we're not naive. We know that there's skeletons in the closet somewhere. But in general, the feedback has been very, very good. Even when there's been, and there has been a lot of moments where, I think people probably wish they didn't take on the projects, but even when those bumps came, the feedback after the interventions were good. So what I'll say is that from our experience, we've had a very interesting implementation. Lean is scary in one way, but it's actually probably, if it's done right, it's probably the most effective and friendly thing that you can do to increase efficiency. And the only message that I can give you from the ones I've been involved in is at the very, very beginning, try and pitch as much as you can exactly what you want. Try and do a lot of homework before you pitch the lean project. What do I want from the lean project? And what commitment am I going to get from senior leaders? That's what I'd be asking myself before I would conduct it. In our case, the senior leaders immediately committed to 1 full day of lean induction, which is a phenomenal amount of time for them to commit. And after that, I shared the story with NC the other day. The group CEO said, who wants to do lean? And every hand in the room just immediately went up. And since that has laid the platform, I won't say completely flat, but it's laid it pretty flat for us to succeed in this particular journey. So thank you. It was my honor to present the good news story from the NAMA group to date.
Well, I'm not in the agenda, and actually I was a surprise attendant for them. So very briefly, I think we've been through a journey. Oman Post, as many of you know, has been a company that existed in the postal industry since forever. It's one of the oldest companies or organizations that exists in this country. But the company itself has been around since its privatization between, I think, 12, 13 years, at the same time when they privatized telecom. Now, we all know when I started around 2016, when we used to ask people about Oman Post, people either they don't know that it exists or they actually think why it actually still exists. And I used to walk in a post office and stay for 3-4 hours and no customers coming into the post office. Myself, I was not a post user in Oman, but abroad I used to use post. For me to move the change to Oman Post was a big decision. It's a company struggling, its industry is struggling. The company had a very bad transformation management, so it was not delivering any value for its customers. So then we've realized that if everything broken in this company, now NC has spoken around something about your methodology and management. So what we've done in the beginning, we started building trust with people because the whole organization have lost their trust in the management. That took us a whole year just to make sure that they actually trust this new management. There is a good relationship at the minimum standard that whatever we're going to tell them, they'll say, okay, you know what? We're going to do it. And then came the story of Lean. And we've started late last year. A lot of challenges. Now, a beautiful story of Nama seems to be just went through, even the flow is a function of flow. The implementation is a clear function of flow and no problems at all, which is really a good story. Now, we face huge challenges, from management resistance, from priorities resistance. When we started Lean, we've been accused that we are not in the right priority. So, your priority is to fix operation, get money, and please the customer, is not to focus on Lean. But we've insisted that no, we have the right focus, we have the right priority. So one of the things, I think the good thing maybe in Namad is that you've got already your shareholders, your board on board of the program. We've struggled. However, I think then once the results started coming in, people start seeing the value. Some of the projects, for example, our Express business, we call EMS, was one of the worst worldwide. One of the worst. Even postal operators, they chose not to send their Express through Oman Post, they send it through DHL. So our own network don't want to deal with us. They abandoned us. So we worked on a Lean project, and it's a great pleasure to announce that today we moved from 33%. It used to be that 33% of the Express mail is delivered on time. Today, just in November, we are at 98.6%. And that was a Lean project. We've started, for example, to establish a customer index. We did not have a call center. When I came in, I wanted to know who are the customers, what's the problem. The problem is we did not know. The only way is a customer finds my phone and calls me. So once we started putting the right channels, then we say, okay, so what? So there was a Lean project around customer. And today, our customers who come into our branches, they are at least we know now that they are 84% of them are satisfied with our service. Now there's still room, there's another 15% that are not. And those 15% are also going to be a Lean project and say, you know what, why is 84? Why is not 99.9 and 100%? So some of the key projects that we had with Lean, honestly, they've really changed the way we think. And they really brought us to a different level. When you're talking about a very traditional organization that we're facing tremendous problems. Today, the floor of Oman Post operation is robust. The flow is very clear. We used to clear mail in 3 to 4 days. Today, every single mail item comes into that hub is cleared in the same day. Your mail, any mail is received in any post office is actually delivered the next day. Now, of course, we don't announce that, and we don't want to make it because there's other, cannibalization of other products and services. But today, that's the capability of Oman Post. And nobody can do that for a normal mail in this country. So there are great capability and great capacity that have been created by this project. So I'm not going to take much of your time. Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for inviting me, and thank you for your time.
So Lean really looks at what is your value stream, how do you go about fulfilling that promise, and what is coming in the way for you to fulfill that promise to your customer. And how do you eliminate those roadblocks or hindrances so that you can deliver that value to the customer as efficiently as possible. So that translates to having an eye for waste or what is not really creating value and continuously challenging waste in the system. Now, this is easier said than done. Sometimes I find the most enlightened conversations I have is with my 5- and 7-year-old boys because they don't have any mindset about anything. So as soon as I tell them to do their homework differently or get ready to school differently, they are immediately looking for ways to be more organized, where they keep their shoes and where they keep their badges and so on. But it's not a very easy conversation to have when somebody has run the process for 30 years and they've set up the plant and they've run it, and you tell them to go back to their plant and look for 7 forms of waste in their processes, and they're going to give you a very blank stare. So one often asked business case or question that is put forth either by the boards or the senior management team or as one voice, saying that we have a planned profit, which is the way we budget in terms of how much profit we wish to realize. And we have a realized profit, and there is always a gap. And oftentimes, those gaps come from elements of material cost, elements of logistics cost, overheads, utilities, you name it. So one is what is the planned profit based on how the system works today. And second is also this, the unforeseen factors that further deteriorate the realized profit from the planned profit. It could be that there was a blockade and therefore we had to airlift, and there are the port increases charges and so on. So you will always find these kind of elements of uncertainty because of which the realized profit is never the same as the planned profit. The second typical business case that we get asked is, we want to build an excellent organization, which means there is not an existential crisis or there isn't a survival threat for the organization. Maybe because it's protected, or maybe because it's subsidized, or maybe because they're in a good market and there is no imminent threat of disruption or competition for that industry. But they still want to ask the question, based on where we are, we need to challenge ourselves to reach benchmark level of performance. That benchmark could be within your industry, or that benchmark could be from outside your industry, right? And that's another very common theme, to which the answer is, let's build in a system or an engine within the organization that enables us to challenge the status quo continuously, that enables us to build the mindset and culture so that people are not allergic to this question as to why things are broken or why change things when it isn't broken. So I was reflecting on the EFQM model. The EFQM stands for the European Foundation for Quality Management. And EFQM is doing a lot of exciting work on educating industries on how they can benchmark themselves against pretty standardized metrics for excellence. And they've recently come out with the 2020 document, which to my mind simplifies a lot of the questions that the CEOs and boards are asking in terms of where do we focus our attention on. So I was reflecting on some of the firms, some of the well written about firms that were praised for their commitment to Lean Six Sigma and continuous improvement. Some were criticized in some articles for their overemphasis on this and so on. So if you Google up, this is a very richly talked about and debated topic. But you will definitely come across firms like General Electric, firms like Pfizer Pharmaceuticals and DHL and Toyota and so on. And we were fortunate to engage with, I think, 3 out of 4 firms in that list. So we have a fair sense of what the boardroom talk was in terms of when they brought in. So in the same note of direction setting, what is the vision for Lean? Is it just a fad? Is it just something we heard about in some circles, or people we know are doing it? Are we going to do it as a one-time initiative, or are we going to embed it into the firm? What is the long-term vision for the initiative? What sort of ROI do we need to expect from the initiative? How do we accelerate the benefits? And how do we get to the tipping point where this becomes natural in our everyday conversations, so that people are not talking about Lean and they're not talking about business as usual? This is a natural extension of conversations when it comes to talking about challenges and talking about improvement areas. So An essential consideration, therefore, is that the initiatives or the projects are chosen that are giving real impact to the business. So once this piece is set, and it's a process, and each organization has a different fabric and DNA based on the legacy, based on the industry it operates in. But if the alignment is not achieved early on in the game, you would have a bit of a risk in terms of people doing a lot of initiatives, but them ending up being paper exercises. And some of the organizations were criticized for a lot of people being just forced to do projects, and those projects are just PowerPoint projects, and you don't want to go down that path because that really dilutes the spirit of the initiative. How do we go about the execution challenge? So one key lever is educating people. Deming famously said that total quality management starts with education and ends with education. So you really can't bring in a transformation or a lean initiative without engaging a large workforce within the organization. So now, on the note of engagement and education, one pitfall that you would like to avoid is that making it more complicated than what is essential. If you see, the Six Sigma world has been criticized heavily for creating these elitist belts. So if you're a belt, then you have a chip on your shoulder. You have somebody who's special and who knows two things more than others. And that's a risk you would like to avoid. The Toyota philosophy is simple. For them, they never put the cart before the horse. So training is always, training is not even a prerequisite to be part of an improvement initiative or an improvement team. Training is an essential tool that equips you to solve the problem that is in front of you. So if that problem involves statistical thinking, you will be taught statistics. If it involves value stream thinking, you will be taught the elements of value stream. So it's essential to maintain that horses for courses approach, making sure that people are equipped and skilled in simple, smart tools that they can use to deal with the challenge in front of them. So how do we have an harmonized approach so that people are not second guessing? This is not sticking out like a sore thumb that, oh, this is a new initiative we need to do. This is part and parcel of how we run business. That includes alignment of processes, alignment of people, alignment of KPIs and measurements, and alignment with strategies. So how do we make sure that the continuous improvement engine is chugging, right from the way we set strategies and the way we measure results?
Why we have chosen lean? I'm sure all the speakers earlier have covered a lot of good insights about lean and what we can achieve with lean and the difficulties we face with lean. I think what I'm bringing to the table today is fresh from the pot. We are doing it as we speak. And trust me, it's fun. I wouldn't say hard, it is fun. So why are we choosing lean? The company is 43 years old. It has been there for a long time. It was the only provider. So it had different decades of different, I would say, guaranteed business. So things were given. Things were easy. And with the time, the challenges started to come to the market. Addressing those challenges was not so easy because everybody is happy. It's being confined between 3 graveyards and a mountain, far away from everything else. So why bother? It was simple, life is still the same. Reality today is different. Just for flour, Oman gets 4 times what it requires from flour, whether produced internally or imported. So that makes it difficult when you are a 100% supplier. You still have to maintain that. Today we are still 60% supply of flour to the business in Oman. So again, this status quo has to move. We have to change that. Look at past problems and ask how can we do things differently. And I think most of you would agree that asking those people who would spend 30 years, 20 years plus in the organization, the answer is simple. We're fine. What are you talking about? Become agile and cost competitive in challenging market conditions. Just to implant that seed into the minds of those mid-level, the executors, by itself You have first to show them the magnitude of the challenge in the market. You don't expect them to be, the gurus of Excel sheets, and you show them the balance sheet and you tell them this is that and this is happening this way. That won't work. So you have to find your way to get them to that. In a nutshell, we had to we had to rock the boat. So we had to look at the business case, see what we need before talking to people. SSA is our strong partner in that. But in the beginning, you need to look at what do you need from Lean in your business case. Improve delivery performance. On phase 2, we had to identify the high potential projects. They are not the low-hanging fruits. They are the high potential. These things are the ones that will change your shape. These days, people go to do these cosmetic surgeries. They change the entire nose, which is a big thing in your face. So we had to change something big and focus on it. But you can't just do it overnight. Not to ignore the low-hanging fruits and things that are there that you discover in the way. So things had to go in parallel. Some of the low-hanging fruits we could easily fix through our ERP. You'll see later on that we are in parallel doing the ERP now, and we are kind of making the gain happening in the ERP system from the low-hanging fruits that we are discovering as we go on. On the third phase is implementing projects. We needed to be careful on selecting the people who would sit on those project teams and engaging them. I had a session of debate on the readiness of the team. So either we would wait until we have them all ready, or we give them that extra dose of readiness, which then had to be taken care of carefully by us. So we had to put that effort of putting them in a different environment. We brought them here quite a few times. We had to give that dose of emotional push along with encouragement to bring in their expertise into the table and not to shy out any fact. On phase 4 is capturing cost savings and continuous improvement. This is natural. You've done all that work, so you need to harvest and then see how you improve every year, how your product is going to come, how your Lean is going to benefit you as you move on. From that, we needed to be assured of where is our focus area. What are we focusing on here? We are taking all these people into a journey, and we have to be crystal clear in front of our board and in front of the employees of the organization. So cost drivers across P&L, fixed and variable, fixed pain areas, and this word has been there more than 3 times today. That's the pain. You're not doing it unless you have pain. You don't go to the doctor unless you have pain. You don't seek medications unless you have pain. Sometimes you are sick, but you don't have pain, so you don't seek medication. You still can move on. But today, the pain is there from a market competitiveness side and also from the challenges related to the cost of inventory. Build a culture to challenge the status quo, and that's back to it. We want people to believe that the change is happening, the change is coming. We don't want to force the change. We want you to help us lead the change. We don't want them to manage it because we have to manage the change. We want them to lead it, to be a leader, each one in his own role at his project. So we had those workshops that I spoke about, and SSA gave us really a good guidance in talking to the team. Classically, we had the value stream because we had to deep dive into each and every aspect of the business where we really could identify those very high potential savings, very high potential improvements, enhancements. Hence, our competitiveness will be there. We are expecting somewhere around 700,000 savings, but it could be more, far more. And I think from your experience, you will know that it is doable. This is a sample of our projects, just like the Oman Post. Streamlined delivery process and reduction in loading and material handling charges. because of the place where we have the feed mill, and this is, I'll tap straight into that because it will give you how easy it is sometimes with lean to discover a good low-hanging fruit. The delivery from the invoice stage when a customer places that into the collection was 15 hours. We discovered that we can make it in 3.5 hours. In the flour mill, we are doing so good just because of the place of it, the location of it, the access rights for the trucks. There it's only half an hour saving that we could do by just accelerating a few things. That was all achieved after some activities being taken, whereby we looked at the detailed activities, the value add and the non-value add, waiting time, delay contributors. The Gemba walk, which is a walk that you go through the process from its start to the end. All our Gemba walks are led by the CEO and the executive members of the organization. And that's because we want all the organization, the employees, to see that we are serious about it. It means to us, it means to the success of the organization. Rigorous diagnostic stage and project selection. If you don't do this in the beginning, if you are not thorough, if you are not lifting every single door in there and opening it up, don't just walk and keep a closed eye about a few things, even if they are irritating, even if they are dusty. Just go there. Be as rigorous as you can. Go deep. Company-wide employee engagement and participation. And I would put 2 lines under participation. They need to feel that they are part of it. So for us to do it with the company that has different levels from forklift operators to millers and head millers, we had to come up with something to have this participation in there. So we initiated a game whereby we didn't give the entire story, but we said there is this program that will help us harvest or make the company better. So there was a competition for the name, actually. This Hasad, the harvest. It's a competition that went through the company, and there was a question before that is, what do you know about lean and what could lean do for us? So we encourage the entire organization to look at it, and you will be surprised the amount of feedback and paperwork that came through to the head office just about what people are thinking of. And the competition went on, and we had a winner, and it was a celebration. So that participation part, we ticked the box for it. So identify quick wins, low-hanging fruits. They were so clear, they manifested themselves from the first round. And we could see more hidden, and they get themselves manifested after we had more brains from the management and the execution teams. They've been more engaged, so they helped us clear some of the dust about the jewels inside. Bring in hard savings first, but don't lose sight of soft savings. When I see hard saving, I see the dollar sign, I will run to it, and sometimes I close an eye or two, let's just focus on getting there. But then you will demolish a very soft saving that is for the long run much better for you. So keep it in parallel, keep the balance. It's not easy. It's easy for me to stand here and say this, but it is not easy to keep an eye on the soft side. Commit to the long term and build capability. This commitment goes all the way through to the board. For Haytham, he has to defend lean, even though the results are not crystal clear yet. And the board has to support lean. So that only comes when you believe in it. Well, that's it from me today. Thank you very much.
The foundation for growth and improvement in any organization, of course, what we have been seeing so far is about driving lean as a culture, lean as a mindset, lean as a strategic enabler. So all those things are required. So along with which we want to bring in certain other elements, we want to talk about it, touch about it, and bring context to how we can link lean to these various areas. The first one is strategic planning execution. Naveen talked about it as part of the EFQM business excellence model. He talked about the strategic area. SSA specializes into balanced scorecard planning execution models, which helps to bring about how do you go about strategizing and creating your future from a future which NC talked about. So that part is very essential in terms of continuity and perpetuity. The second bit which I have seen in this particular region is about ERP. Most organizations are going through a transition phase wherein they are looking to upgrade their existing automated systems, their ERP systems, and are at a stage where they are looking at, because there is a transition which is happening in terms of moving from on-premise deployed ERP systems to going to the cloud. So all organizations are looking at this point of time. It is a crucial decision-making point. A lot of investment has to be made. So how do you link lean and your ERP systems? What are the touch points? Becomes very crucial to evaluate. So the first one, lean plus ERP implementation. What I have seen when organizations want to implement ERP is you call in the ERP vendors, and then they come and try to sell why is their solution the best for you. And then you have the ERP provider and you have a partner organization who will come to implement that particular solution. So the partner will try to sell again how you need to not do any changes, go as far as possible with the best in class, because a lot of investments have gone. They have the process already defined. So you want to, as far as possible, use the standard ERP processes. So that is the story which gets told to you. Unfortunately, what doesn't get looked into detail is how do we work and how do we link these best practices in. And this is where SSA talks about doing an process efficiency assessment in terms of understanding, are our processes lean in first place, and are people ready for the change of the ERP, and how do you go about implementing the ERP. So you want to take it in a stage process wherein the people realize the need for a change, and then the change is being implemented. The next topic which I want to touch upon is on Ddmrp, which is demand-driven material requirements planning. So materials requirement planning is done at a strategic level, at a tactical level, at an operational level. So you do a planning in terms of creating annual contracts with your vendors. You do it at a tactical level in terms of planning your month, and day to day you do your procurement in terms of saying how and when which materials need to come in, when it has to come in. So one of the key areas when we worked with a lot of manufacturing organizations is the struggle which they have in terms of getting this right, getting it visually. A lot of times we find this is a very much person-dependent process, even though we have the MRP in the system, but still there are few people who hold guard about in terms of how the planning has to be done, and they hold the nuances of knowing which is critical, which is not critical, and then directing the team. Now, if you look at the challenges of inventory planning, in inventory planning, I think NC talked about it, a lot of people talked about it. The challenges which we are seeing today is shorter customer tolerance, more product variety, long lead time parts and components, shorter product life cycles, pressure for leaner inventories, and inaccurate forecast, right? So that is one of the challenges of the traditional ERP systems, is that even though we have these systems, people will have some kind of an Excel sheet in which they will do their last minute corrections, planning in terms of saying that this material is to be replaced with this particular material, or some other changes have to be done, and hence the procurement has to be different. So the challenges are that the MRP becomes a little bit rigid in terms of how it is being designed into the whole ERP framework. So what is Ddmrp? Ddmrp is primarily a new approach to plan the right size inventory and achieve highest delivery performance. Two contradictory statements. So you're saying that I'm going to reduce the inventory levels and increase your delivery performance. It's a planning and execution approach for combining your forecasting and your demand pull. So you have in your organization both made to stock items and made to order items. So how can you combine these two elements and still deliver effectively? That's what Ddmrp does. And it covers the business right from your planning processes, right from your forecasting, to your order processing, to your procurement, to your inventory management, and covers the entire value chain. It promises on-time delivery performance over 95%, inventory reduction close to 30%, and it's a very easy, intuitive process, removes the people dependencies, makes it very visual in terms of how people can manage inventories. So that's touching upon DDMRP. We are affiliates of the Demand Driven Institute, which promotes and gives certification programs across the globe on this element. Now, bringing the context and connecting it to lean. Now, what happens is how Industry 4.0 helps lean. Typically in lean, what happens is you look at past performance, you look at why things are not working the way it is, and there are events which are there on your right there, and you do analysis, you do root cause analysis of why things are not working while it should be, and then countermeasures are initiated, actions are taken, implementation plans are made, and then deployed. So typically what happens is the time when you realize there is a problem to the time when it is actually solved and implemented, the amount of time being taken is significant in terms of 3 to 4 months or 6 months, in some cases up to 8 months, depending on the size of the project. What Industry 4.0 is trying to achieve is trying to reduce all these timelines by providing you data the minute an event occurs, by providing you ability to do the analysis through visual dashboards, by providing you with the countermeasures automatically in terms of saying that what changes need to be done and providing that logic to you. So that is where Industry 4.0 and Lean get interlinked in terms of driving efficiencies and improvements. So this, what Industry 4.0 finally drives, as you go through this journey from the stage 1 to stage 6, what you drive is you reduce inventory cost, you reduce manufacturing cost, your people dependency comes down, your labor costs go down, your logistics costs go down, quality costs come down, you drive flexibility, you're unlocking more capacity and making yourself available. And these are what the measures which we look at as we go through the Industry 4.0 journey. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for inviting me to join the panel and this astonishing gathering of lean practitioners. I think all of you have either started or wanted to start a lean journey. And I always sit in these not always, sometimes in these sessions or conferences, and there's always something that goes in my mind. When I came here this morning, usually when I leave the office, I try to lean my journey. So I think what is the best route, and sometimes I consult Google to figure out where are the hotspots and avoid them. So today, as I was coming here, my lean journey failed because I forgot to connect my phone, and I had to stop on the way just to connect my phone so that I can make calls or whatever I normally do when I am driving. So every journey, it has its pitfalls. There's no perfect journey. Last week we had Oshram conference, so I attended some of the sessions. And there was something that bothering me about what I am listening to. And what was really bothering me is that everybody is talking about their successes. They're always successful. But in reality, they had gone through a journey that maybe at the end was successful, but they have gone through a lot of hurdles until they got to the point where they actually got to. And maybe they're not telling us even the full story. They're telling us the good part of the story, but they're not telling us about the rest, which is a natural tendency. People don't like to talk about negative things. People like always to talk about positive things. In Nama, we started this lean journey about a year ago. And we started it by appointing a good consultant to help us, because we didn't have the competency internally. So we started a journey. And I am sure that James and the people who are here can tell you about the good and the bad of this journey. So as we open this discussion and we open for questions, I think we should take the opportunity to ask about the pitfalls, about the failures, because it's only from our failures that we become successful.
My name is Haji Al-Blushi. I am from the National College of Automotive Technology. So I have 3 questions. Question number 1, how does lean apply to non-manufacturing settings, such as universities, colleges, and training providers? Question number 2 is, what are the most common mistakes in implementing lean approach? And the question number 3, how does lean compare to other processes, as Mr. NC has already highlighted some of the other processes at the chart. So I would like to know more about this, if he can elaborate about the comparison of the process, other processes, and the lean process. Thank you very much.
So I would request Mr. James to address this. Yeah? I'm just trying to choose the nearest response.
Thank you. I'll take the second part of the question first. So lean from a non-manufacturing perspective. So we apply lean in Numu as much as we possibly can. But my own background is I set up a college in Ireland. And one of the founding principles that we had was to be extremely efficient and drive almost solely from a quality strategy. So we utilized a lot of the lean methodologies to streamline the way that we present it, content, student journeys, how they would access placements, which was a very big part of, that was the problematic part of that particular journey. So we tried to lean that process and keep as much waste away from their journey as we could possibly achieve. Very difficult from an educational institute to remove all of the waste because you're dealing with human interaction from all different levels for every conceivable input. So you're probably dealing with humans on both sides of the equation with all the different variances that come in. But we removed as much waste and as much variety out of the process as we could. I think we had a very strong debate last week about, does lean, is lean as effective when there's other processes already in place? And even we had a debate at our own board meeting, value engineering as an example. One of our projects, everybody said, look, this is value engineering, not lean. The way that we would look at that is that it is value engineering, looked at through the lens of lean. So you're applying the principle across whichever other topic. And it's all, at the end of the day, it's all about business excellence. So it's combining the tools.
I would say the biggest mistake what we can do in terms of lean is not getting the top level buy-in. If you try to force this lean culture into an organization, it has to be top down. If you don't have the buy-in from the executives, then that is a big mistake in my opinion, and it is very important because let us be honest here. You talk to anyone in any organization, when you talk about lean, there is a lot of resistance. everybody is, no, this won't work, this is something new. Culture is always a challenge. So you will be able to see all of these challenges going forward. But eventually by time, and if I may go back to your first question, and you said, how can I apply it to a university or a college? I mean, when I started in Oman Flour Mill, I was talking to Ibrahim and I said, when we were discussing about implementing lean, and I said, well, our culture is not ready to implement lean. It's too early. We need to change the culture first. But then I looked back at the Royal Hospital, for example, and they started the lean project on individual efforts. They didn't have a consultant. They didn't have anyone. They had initiated internally within the team. It was very, very challenging, but 2 years down the line, I think they have achieved great milestones. And to me, they are today a benchmark that it is difficult. It's not easy, but we'll eventually reach there.
My name is Yahya Al-Habsi. I'm an employee of the newly created OQ Group as of yesterday. I have a question for the three gentlemen, mainly Umar, Haytham, and Ibrahim. Not because they're Omanis, but because you are directly involved in the Omani way or the Omani systems in dealing with the government sector. And my question is, we deal with government sectors almost on a daily basis, and there are a lot of hurdles in getting the approvals and the processes done through the government. And I'm sure if the government applies lean, as we see lean what should be, a lot of these hurdles and processes would really be eliminated, and things will go much faster and smoother. And the GDP also can be impacted on this, if we look at it on a bigger picture. So as industry and services leaders, what role do you think you are playing currently, or you should be playing, to impact or to influence government sectors to adopt lean, to exercise lean, and to improve their processes to benefit the country and the nation as a whole? Thank you.
It's a very big question. Probably beyond our capabilities, يعني. But very good examples in the government of optimized processes. Just remember the police and how long it used to take you to get your driving license or renew your car registration or whatever, or renew your passport. Now it literally takes almost nothing, يعني. I think the government, in parts of it, are already applying, I don't know if they call it lean or they call it somebody else or they got a consultant, but somehow they get it done. And some ministries are already doing it. As part of our lean effort, we are doing something like that is a cross government organization, and we are trying to optimize the number of days that a connection, how long does a connection take, and why does it take 10 days or 20 days? Why can't it just take 1 day? When you look into this process of how people can get connected in 1 day, it involves the municipalities, it involves many other organizations. But that's a process we are working at, to put everybody together in a process flow that is optimized.
Well, to answer your question, it's gonna be difficult, but I'll start from a different angle, which is not to undermine the government entities or the capacity within, but let's be realistic. You need readiness before you start talking about lean, and I did speak about that. One thing we found in the company is that to have the readiness to start even bringing the lean into the table and talk about it. In the government, I'm sure people would know about lean. They have seen examples happening in big organizations, but maybe in certain entities, the leaders of those units, they still need to mature their confidence in their system to be able to adapt to lean. Perhaps a dose from, a higher level from the cabinet or something, to that lean is one of the KPIs for the next 5 years plan.
Important you mentioned, and it is And lean is about performance at the end of the day. And if nobody is held accountable for their performance, why would they adopt anything better? This is the starting point for everything.
My name is Prabhakar. I represent Stomo. Stomo is a O&M company for power plants in Oman. And actually, our biggest problem is the inventory built up over a period of years together. And we are trying to dissolve that. But whatever problems are the solutions, whatever are having for inventory reduction are basically for a manufacturing industry, more principles are there, more easy ways are there. But for a O&M industry, have you ever done a, inventory reduction as a case study or practically implemented anywhere in your experience?
So definitely, I think as a concept, when we look at Ddmrp, which is being applied, and when we look at inventory management, it covers in terms of, so even within maintenance, there is some procurement which has to happen, some service which has to happen, and then the delivery which has to happen. So when we look at the context of the whole cycle which has to be applied, Ddmrp is pretty flexible in terms of where it can be applied. We have applied Ddmrp into banks where we look at which ATMs need to refill their cash and where the cash has to go. So it is all about a logic which you have to look at it and how it can be applied into our industry. So to that extent, whether we talk lean, whether we talk Six Sigma, these are all principles which can be applied in any industry. It is about getting the context right and putting that linkages into how am I going to apply it to my industry. And that is where the experience and knowledge of doing it across various industries helps in the whole deployment.
So everywhere the inventory management requires a very scientific approach which has been basically forecasting. Now the science of Ddmrp is phenomenally changing the whole complexion of inventory management process. Be it a trading company which is stocking various materials, or be it maintenance spares, which is the biggest problem in many organizations. I'm sure Oman Flour Mills is another. Everywhere you will find the spare parts are not, of the right spares that you require. In your type of organizations, you will have maybe facility management where you have a lot of material. So the philosophy is equally applicable wherever you have inventory. Because there is a demand, there is a flow system can be established. So that's the answer for your question. I am of the view that once we assume the leadership position, do one thing every day that scares you. If it scares you, it will rock the boat. Thank you very much. That's all I want to say.